Sweet. Yeah, hi. My name is Goutam. I work at Anyscale. I'm an engineer who works on Ray data. So first, I want to explain what Ray is at its very core. Think of Ray as a distributed operating system. So we give you some primitives to schedule tasks across a cluster. So there are a few primitives like tasks, which are stateless functions, and actors, which are stateful. And Ray core kind of abstracts all of the underlying network and interactions with shared memory. There are libraries built on top of Ray. So there's Ray data, which is what I'm going to talk about, Ray train, serve, and tune. So they cater to different use cases and kind of abstract away the Ray interaction itself. So first question to answer is why build Ray data? What is the existing state of data processing engines? So as Lei was talking about, most data sets, or at least historically, they were structured, tabular. You're dealing with strings, ints, and most of the bottleneck came from, CPU and memory, and the operators themselves are vectorizable and pretty lightweight, right? That's historically how it's been. And most of the ecosystem was JVM-based, so Spark, which a lot of people are familiar with, is heavily reliant on Java and Scala. So there's a bit of overhead in that transformation. So when we go to more of an AI data processing system, you're dealing with different types of data. So you're dealing with large tensors, different dimensionality of tensors, and now your bottleneck moved from just CPUs to a combination of CPU, GPU, and GPU memory even, right? And these operations are extremely heavy. The distribution of execution time varies across operators, so there's a lot of variability that you have to account for, and your system has to be resilient to failures in this high variability scenario. And moreover, the entire AI ecosystem is in Python, for better or for worse. And LLMs also love Python, so we kind of have to cater to this new world. Moreover, I think the biggest advantage that Ray data has over other systems is the fact that we can scale each stage independently. So just to clarify, by stage, I mean these horizontal boxes. You can scale up the concurrency of each stage. So yeah, just a rough summary of what I mentioned before. So we want to be able to handle native tensor types. It should work for Python. It should work for scheduling on different pieces of hardware. So GPUs, TPUs, NPUs if you guys have access to it. And it needs to work for stateful operators and work across the entire ecosystem of data storage engines, so Iceberg, Parquet, Lance, and so forth. So what are the other challenges with unstructured data? So if you processed unstructured data very naively, let's say you just did one stage at a time and you didn't pipeline it, your GPU would be idle for much, much longer. And you're not effectively using all the resources. And on top of that, since GPUs are such a prized commodity, they're very expensive, people tend to use spot instances. And spot instances are prone to preemption. And in that case, you need to have your entire system be fault tolerant. And most aren't able to handle this level of complexity. So what does Ray data do instead? We pipeline all the different stages. So intermediate outputs from the prior stage are then fed into the next stage, and so on and so forth. So the GPU gets activated much earlier than before. And then in terms of fault tolerance and checkpointing, we checkpoint that state and buffer the intermediate outputs in shared memory or disk even, so that if the process dies, it can refresh the state from that point. So at a very high level, what we do is we kind of cater to every data source you can think of. So catalogs, files, databases, streaming sources, and we give you primitives to transform that data, schedule the work on a cluster. And it has to be subject to these constraints, so CPU, GPU, and memory. There's a few transformations that we expose. In the next slide, I'll go over all the APIs that we offer. If I share all the APIs, I'm going to be sitting here all day. But effectively, it's like somewhere north of like 60 APIs. So if you guys really want to go for it, feel free to stare at it. But essentially, there's like a set of APIs to read, write, do like vectorized transforms, do batch-wise transforms. We give you primitives to do aggregations, so large-scale aggregations, and be able to dictate how many logical resources each operator takes. So you have maximal control during execution time. I just wanted to highlight the vectorized transforms. So array data is essentially distributed arrow. So all these expressions call into arrow compute kernels. So you get advantage of SIMD instructions. And you can also make your own expressions on top of this. So if you want to leverage SIMD to the maximum level, please feel free to use this. It's your best way. All right. So here's a concrete example with something that involves CPUs and GPUs. So here I'm reading an image or a series of images. I'm transforming them through some function. Then I'm going to pipe it into a GPU inference stage and then write out the output to a Parquet file. So we do two steps. The first is the logical plan. So this just describes what you're trying to accomplish as a user. We'd go through a logical plan optimization. So we will do things like predicate or projection pushdown. So if you guys have worked with other query engines, we kind of take those techniques. And then the physical plan basically dictates where it's going to run, how many instances are required per stage, whether or not you want to fuse two stages together, and so on and so forth. So physical plan is just how it's going to do it. Under the hood, we have what's called a streaming execution. So think of it as a large queuing system. So each stage buffers the output into a queue. So those intermediate outputs are stored in shared memory, which is distributed shared memory's object store. So that's the object store that you see here. They'll be in different nodes. And when we schedule tasks, we tend to prefer scheduling where the data is. So we want to minimize the total amount of data that's moved when we make these scheduling decisions. And each of these yellow pieces that you see here, in array data lingo, we call it blocks. These blocks are just arrow tables under the hood. And they just they get shuffled. So this is more into what the scheduling looks like. I have, let's say, a GPU stage here. Each of these, we want to ensure that the GPU stage is saturated sufficiently. And as a result, we want to ensure that those data values are as close as possible to the GPU nodes to make the data movement as quick and efficient as possible. I wanted to highlight a simple video just showing the concept of actor pools. So the map operators that we saw before right here, they're basically actor pools or task pools under the hood. So this should just highlight the advantage of using actor pools. So if, let's say, I have really large model weights, and if I just use a task pool, then I'd have to load up the process, schedule it, and then load the model weights onto that process. But let's say I have a warm pool of processes, it's much, much faster, right? So this is kind of the advantage. Now I want to move on to shuffles. So for clarity, these are data shuffles. So whenever you're doing like a key-based repartition, or if you're doing a large-scale group by, you would need a shuffle. So the way this works is it's a two-phase step. One is we take your input blocks, we hash partition these blocks such that they get distributed across your entire cluster, and then it goes through a reduction phase. So once the shards are placed into their appropriate partition, then we reduce in a streaming fashion, and then they get piped to the next output. All of that complexity in data movement is kind of hidden away from the users, so all you're doing is just like a select star and group by. And the key thing that you are responsible for is selecting the number of logical partitions, because you as a user are aware of the skew of your data. So that's something you have to keep in mind. Also, as an additional feature, we did release in beta support for GPU-based shuffles. So if you have a crazy amount of data and you want additional cost performance, I would suggest giving GPU shuffles a try. And GPU shuffles follow a similar high-level paradigm. The difference is it avoids talking to the object store altogether. So you save on serialization costs, and it uses UCX under the hood. All right, I'm gonna pause here. That was a lot of information in one go. And if you guys don't want to deal with the complexity of managing an array cluster in open source by yourselves, I would highly recommend using Anyscale. We give you observability tools and all the nice fancy tools to make your day-to-day production much, much happier. So thank you.